So today we'll discuss about one of the life process which helps to breathe in and out. So what is that life process which helps to live on earth? So the life process which helps to live on earth on breathing air called as respiration. So respiration, the term respiration is derived from the Latin word respire, Latin respire, to breathe. It's called as to breathe. So here the term respiration can be derived as, and it can be defined as the intaking of oxygen and releasing of carbon dioxide. In a simple way we can define intaking of oxygen and releasing of carbon dioxide. Around us we can see number of animals, a number of living organisms. They have their own respiratory organs and they will respire in their own way. And take an example, if we take an example of different types of respiratory organs and their respiratory parts. For example, if you take the types of respirations, so types of respiration, aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. What is called aerobic respiration? The respiration that takes place in the presence of oxygen. In the presence of oxygen. If the respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen, it is called as aerobic respiration. If the respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen, it is called as anaerobic respirations. Once again I will repeat, respiration is nothing but it is a catabolic process where the energy is released, and the intaking of gases and releasing of gases is called as respiration. And types of respiration: aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration. In the aerobic respiration, respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. Examples: all human beings, plants, animals, etc. come under the aerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration is nothing but respiration that takes place in the absence of oxygen is called as anaerobic respiration. Example: bacteria and yeast. Example: bacteria and yeast. So this is the types of respirations. Later we discuss about the different types of respiratory organs in the different animals. So organism, respiratory organ, and what is that system called as respiratory system. So here we will discuss about the different types of respiratory systems in different organisms. So we can able to know around some are terrestrial organisms, means which are lives on land, aquatic organisms which lives in water, and some are amphibians which lives in water as well as on land also. And how the respiration takes place in these type of organisms and what type of respiratory system they have. Take an example first. We will take a human beings, we only, and animals also we can take, terrestrial animals. Animals like terrestrial animals like cow, buffalo, goat, sheep, ox, camel, etc., which are terrestrial, which lives on land. The respiratory organ is lungs. And the type of respiratory system, which respiration takes place through lungs is called as pulmonary respiration. Pulmonary respiration. If the respiration takes place through lungs, called as pulmonary. And take an example of aquatic organisms like fishes, Why they are called aquatic means which lives in water, so they are called as aquatic. And fishes respire through gills. It is called as bronchial respiration. It is called as bronchial respiration. Insects, all insects respire through trachea. What is the respiratory system in tracheal respiration? And best example for skin, earthworm, respiratory organ is skin, called as cutaneous respiration. So these are the 4 types of respiratory systems we can see around us. Some respire through lungs, though most of them are vertebrates, as well as most of them which are living on land, they respire through lungs. So the type of respiration which takes place through lungs is called as pulmonary respiration. And fishes, they are aquatic organisms because they can't able to live on land. They only live in water only. And their respiratory organs are gills. And such type of respiration that takes place through gills called as bronchial respiration. And insects respire through trachea called as tracheal respiration. Earthworm, it belongs to phylum Annelida. It belongs to phylum Annelida. And here insects belongs to phylum Arthropoda. And fishes belongs to phylum Piscis. And human beings and animals, animal kingdom we call. So an earthworm respires through skin. Such type of respiration that takes place through skin, it is called as cutaneous respiration. So these are the 4 types of respiratory systems. Now we can able to understand how these organisms have their respiratory organs and they have separate respiratory systems, and how these fishes, insects, earthworms respire. Now we'll discuss about bronchial respiration, tracheal respiration and cutaneous respiration. Later we'll discuss about the large pulmonary respiration afterwards. Now first we'll discuss about the bronchial respiration. So bronchial respiration through gills called as bronchial respiration, through gills. Gills are the respiratory organs in aquatic organisms like fishes. All the fishes has to respire with the gills only as they are aquatic organisms. How the respiration takes place in fishes? As these are present in water, as these fishes are present in water, in the water oxygen is dissolved. Oxygen is dissolved in water. The water consists of oxygen in the dissolved process. Now whenever the fish are present in this water, whenever the fishes are in water, if they want to respire, first they lower their lower jaw. They lower their lower jaw. So they consist of 2 jaws like us only, upper jaw and lower jaw. So whenever they want to respire, first they lower their lower jaw. Whenever they lower their lower jaw, the water enters into the buccal cavity. So water enters into buccal cavity means space present in the mouth called as buccal cavity. So buccal cavity, as the water is diffused by the oxygen, so whenever the water enters into the buccal cavity, the oxygen is dissolved already in the water. Oxygen is dissolved already in the water, enters into the buccal cavity, and it enters into the pouches called as called gill pouches. Pouch means a sac-like structure, a bag-like structure. First, it lowers their lower jaw. Water enters into buccal cavity, and the water enters into the pouches called as gill pouches. After water enter into the gill pouches, water baths with gill lamellae. This is another stage. Water bathes with gill lamellae in gill pouches, and exchange of gases takes place. Exchange of gases takes place. So now see once again, I'll repeat. Bronchial respiration means respiration through gills called as bronchial respiration. Best example, fishes. Whenever the fish is in water, always it will be in water only. As the water is dissolved oxygen, as the water consists of dissolved oxygen, whenever the fish wants to respire, it opens its mouth. When it opens its mouth, the lower jaw comes downside. At that time, water enters into the buccal cavity. When the water enters into the buccal cavity, the water enters into the pouches present in the gills called as gill pouches, a sac-like structure, a bag-like structure. And water baths with the gill lamellae, and exchange of gases takes place. This type of respiration is called as bronchial respiration. So this type of respiration is called as bronchial respiration. Next, if you go for the tracheal respiration. So tracheal respiration. Tracheal respiration can be seen in all insects. Insects respire through trachea. It is called as tracheal respiration. And this trachea is divided into, for example of cockroach you take. Cockroach also an insect. If you take an example of cockroach, the trachea is divided into small branches. The trachea is divided into small branches, and these are called as spiracles. And exchange of gases takes place in these spiracles only. So insects, best example cockroach, if you take the trachea is divided into, lined with the small line-like structures with air spaces. These are called as spiracles, and with the help of these spiracles, exchange of gases takes place. As we intake oxygen and release of carbon dioxide, these insects also aerobic respiration takes place. And now, if you come to the cutaneous respiration. In the cutaneous respiration means the respiration that takes place through skin. The respiration that takes place through skin is called as cutaneous respiration. Best example for cutaneous respiration is earthworm. And how these organisms respire. If you observe the earthworm, the earthworm's body is moist. Always it is moist and slimy. The body of the earthworm will be moist and slimy, and their body consists of small pores are present inside the skin. The small pores are present. Pores means holes. The skin is made up of small holes, and it is covered with a moist and slimy layer. And through this skin only, exchange of gases takes place. Carbon dioxide is released, oxygen is taken inside through skin. It is called as cutaneous respiration. So if you observe in the earthworm, always the earthworm will be moist and slimy. When the skin of the earthworm dries up, the earthworm dies. So always it keeps its skin moist and slimy, and the skin consists of small holes, means nothing but pores are present throughout its skin. Through these holes only exchange of gases takes place, and carbon dioxide is released outside and oxygen is taken inside through skin. Such type of respiration that takes place through skin, it is called as cutaneous respiration. It is called as cutaneous respiration. So now we discussed about the cutaneous respiration, bronchial respiration and tracheal respiration. One important aspect in the respiration, if you come to the amphibians, so very interesting property in the amphibian, like a frog, amphibians, example frogs and toads and salamanders. These are the examples of amphibians. Amphibian means which can live on land as well as in water. So they are the interlink between the aquatic as well as the terrestrial organisms. Amphibians are interlink between aquatic and terrestrial. Aquatic and terrestrial. So interlink between the aquatic and terrestrial, these are called as amphibians. And if you take an example of amphibians, frogs, toads and salamanders. And frog, when the frog is in larval stage, that larval stage of frog is called as a tadpole. When the frog is in tadpole stage, the tadpole respires through gills. So we can able to see bronchial respiration in the tadpole. So here, once you go through this one once again, in the amphibian means nothing but which lives on land as well as in water. Best examples: frogs, toads, salamanders. Salamander is a fish. And here the fish which can able to live in water as well as on land, only fish, salamanders. And the frog, when it is in larval stage, the larva of the frog is called as a tadpole larva. When it is in larval stage, it respires through gills. Such type of respiration that takes place through gills called as bronchial respiration, we know that one. And when the tadpole larva changes into adult frog, when they grows into adult frog, in the adult frog, the gills will disappear. Instead of gills, lungs appear. In the adult frog. And skin also plays a major role in the respiration in the frog. When the frog is on land, it respires through lungs, called as pulmonary respiration. When it is present in water, it respires through skin, called as cutaneous respiration. Here we can able to see two types of respiratory organs present in the frog, adult frog. And when it is in larval stage, it respires through gills only. And here these frogs, we can able to see all frequently the frog will jumps into water and hops into water and comes outside. Why they have to frequently hops into water means in order to keep their skin moist. When the skin of the frog dries, the frog dies. So in order to prevent from the death, they will hops into water and keeps their skin moist. So this is another type of respiratory systems. And next, if you go to how the exchange of gases takes place in human beings, it is called as pulmonary respiration. So the type of respiration that takes place with the help of lungs called as pulmonary respiration. And here when we observe, we can able to say that we are intaking the oxygen and releasing of carbon dioxide. And in this type of respiration, we have two stages of respirations. The two steps involved in the respiration, it is called as inspiration and expiration. Inspiration and expiration. What is called inspiration and what is called expiration? Inspiration is also called as inhalation. Inspiration also called as inhalation. Expiration also called as exhalation. So what is the definition of these two? So we can able to define the respiration as intaking of oxygen and releasing of carbon dioxide. Here intaking of oxygen is inspiration, releasing of carbon dioxide is expiration. So both steps are involved in the respiration. If you write both the steps of inspiration and expiration, it is nothing but a respiration only. So but in the human beings, lungs plays a major role. Lungs plays a major role during respiration, and the type of respiration that takes place through lungs is called as pulmonary respiration. Pulmonary respiration. And we can able to say that we are respiring every time. During daytime we will respire, as well as during night time also we will respire. Respiration is one of the life process, very important life process to make the organism to live. And here now when we observe, we can able to say that we are intaking of oxygen and we are releasing of carbon dioxide. And first the oxygen. Oxygen was first discovered by the scientist called as Joseph Priestley. Joseph Priestley has discovered the oxygen. After that, the name oxygen was coined by Lavoisier. So these two scientists, they worked on the gases, and here Joseph Priestley discovered oxygen and Lavoisier coined the name as oxygen, and Lavoisier continued the study about the oxygen and carbon dioxide, and he said that carbon dioxide is called as fixed air. Carbon dioxide is called fixed air, and oxygen is called as vitiated air. Fixed air and vitiated air. And now we are releasing the carbon dioxide. We are taking the oxygen. With a small experiment, we can prove that the gas which we are releasing is carbon dioxide. So what is that experiment to prove that the breathing air consists of oxygen and carbon dioxide? Small experiment. To know carbon dioxide is released during respiration in human beings. Take two test tubes. Two test tubes I have to take. Two test tubes I have taken. So one test tube is filled with general water. It is general water. Another test tube is filled with lime water. One test tube is filled with general water. Another test tube is filled with lime water. Now just take two straws and insert these two straws into these test tubes. So first you have taken two test tubes, one with the general water, one with the lime water. Then insert the two straws into these test tubes and just keep these 2 straws in your mouth. At a time in your mouth, you have to keep these 2 straws in your mouth and blow the air. Blow the air. Blow the air. At a time you blow the air. At a time you blow the air. Or first you blow the air in the general water, or afterwards first blow the air in the lime water, or at a time also we can blow the air. Now after that, if you blow the air, the general water does not show any change, does not show any change in the color. Any change, does not show any change in color. And the lime water changes into milky white, indicating that carbon dioxide is released during respiration. Exhalation, when you are exhaling, we are releasing the carbon dioxide gas. And the lime water can be changed into milky white by the carbon dioxide. Only carbon dioxide has the capacity to change the lime water into milky, not other gases. So we can able to prove that we are releasing the carbon dioxide from this. First, we have to take 2 test tubes. One test tube is filled with the general water, another test tube is filled with the lime water. And insert the 2 straws and blow the air by keeping in your mouth. And then we can able to see no change of color in the general water. We can able to see the lime water changed into milky white in color, indicating that the gas we released is carbon dioxide. So this is a small experiment which we can do at our house also. And now, how the exchange of gases takes place in human body, and which parts plays a major role, and what are the importance of lungs, etc. So first we discuss about what are the importance of lungs. Study of lungs is called as pulmonology. Study of lungs called as pulmonology. Study of lungs called pulmonology. And who studies about the lungs and their importance and their surgery is called as pulmonologist. Specialist in lung defects called as pulmonologist. And location, lungs location, just behind the heart, just behind the heart. 2 lungs are present. How many? Number 2 in number. Location just below the heart. 2 in number. And nature, how they are means spongy in nature. They are spongy, soft, spongy in nature. Color, reddish in color. They are reddish in color. And now, location we completed, just behind the heart. Number 2 in number. Nature, spongy in nature. Color, reddish. Both lungs are in same size or not? So both the lungs are not in same size. So size. Left lung is slightly lower than right lung. Left lung is slightly lower than right lung, in order to give the space for heart, So this is about the external features of lungs. So study of lungs called as pulmonology. Locations are just present behind our heart, and these lungs and heart is protected by the rib cage. It is protected by the muscles as well as the rib cage, and which is attached to the vertebral column. It is attached to the rib cage is attached to the vertebral column. In between this rib cage, heart and lungs are present. Heart and lungs are present. Now, what are the units of lungs? Units of lungs. Alveoli. Alveoli are the units of lungs. Alveoli are the units of lungs. This is the external features of human lungs. So study of lungs is called as pulmonology. And who studies about the lungs and their defects and the remedies called as pulmonologist. Called as pulmonologist. Is called as pulmonology. Whenever we have the problems, respiratory problems, we'll consult a specialist doctor. He is called as pulmonologist. And location just behind the heart. Number 2 in number. Nature spongy in nature. Color reddish in color. Size left lung is slightly lower than the right lung. What is the use? What is the reason for this one? Means in order to give the space for heart, on the upper surface of the lung only, on the left lung only, heart is placed, and above the left lung only, heart is placed. So the left lung will be somewhat, so this is the left and this is the right. The left lung will be somewhat lower than the right lung, here as the heart is present. And the units of lungs, alveoli. Units of lungs, alveoli. Now, what are the respiratory parts of respiratory system and how the gases, exchange of gases takes place? Today we will discuss about this. First, parts of respiratory system. Parts of respiratory system. Parts of respiratory system. The respiratory system starts with nose. The respiratory system starts with nose. And nose consists of 2 passages called as nostrils. And this leads to nasal nares. Nasal nares leads to pharynx. Pharynx leads to larynx. Larynx leads to trachea. Trachea leads to tracheoles. Tracheoles to bronchi. Bronchi to bronchioles. Bronchioles, alveolus, alveoli and blood. These are the parts of respiratory system. Nose, nostrils, nasal nares, pharynx, larynx, trachea, tracheoles, bronchi, bronchioles, alveoli and blood. Now, how the passage of air takes place? During inhalation or nothing but inhalation. First, in this way, inhalation, this side inhalation and this side exhalation you take. Inhalation means intaking of oxygen, intaking of oxygen. Exhalation means releasing of carbon dioxide. Now, when we inhale, oxygen enters through nose to the 2 nostrils we have. Through these nostrils, the gaps present between these 2 nostrils is called as nasal nares, and it touches to pharynx, pharynx to larynx. Here larynx is called as voice box. Larynx is called as voice box. And pharynx is called as junction box. It is called as junction box because it is a junction for food as well as the air, passage of food as well as the air. So it is called as a junction box. And trachea is called as a windpipe. Trachea is called windpipe. You came to know about this trachea in the tracheal respiration in insects. So now oxygen passes from nose to nostrils to nasal nares to pharynx, larynx, trachea. Once again, trachea is divided into small branches called tracheoles, and oxygen enters into tracheoles to the bronchi, bronchi to bronchioles, bronchioles to the air spaces which are present in the lungs called as alveoli. The units of lungs called as alveoli, plural alveolus. When the oxygen diffuses in the alveolus, it mixes with the blood. This is called as inhalation. Here, one way oxygen is entered into blood. Inhalation takes place. Another way, carbon dioxide has to come outside. From the blood, as the carbon dioxide is present, that is called as deoxygenated blood. And this deoxygenated blood removes the carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide comes out from blood to alveoli, from alveoli to bronchioles, from bronchioles to bronchi, from bronchi to tracheoles, from tracheoles to trachea, to larynx, to pharynx, to nasal nares, through nostrils, and at last it comes outside. It is called as exhalation. It is called as inhalation. See, oxygen goes in one way. Carbon dioxide comes in one way. So whenever we are inhaling, exhaling does not take place. Whenever we are exhaling, inhalation does not take place. Nothing but it is a one-way traffic. We can say as a traffic in one way, no? Like that, air also goes in one way, comes in one way. When the inspiration takes place, expiration does not take place. When the expiration takes place, inspiration does not take place. It is called parts of respiratory system. And what are the events that takes place in the respiration? So next topic, we'll go for the events that takes place in the respiration. So events in the respiration. Events in respiration. How the oxygen is diffused into the blood. That is the main reason how the oxygen is diffused. First, breathing. When you take breathing of gases, first you have breathed. Exchange of gases takes place. Exchange of gases takes at lungs level. Exchange of gases takes place at lungs level. Then transport of gases at tissue level. Then cellular respiration. So before that, what happens means exchange of gases takes place in the lungs level. After that, it takes place in the blood. Now it takes place at the blood. In the blood, as it consists of tissues, exchange of gases in tissues, and at last exchange of gases in cellular level. Exchange of gases in cellular level. Now, first when we take the air, directly it enters into lungs. From lungs it enters into blood. From blood it enters into tissues. From tissues it enters into the cellular level. It is called as cellular respiration. So the total body needs oxygen, and total body which consists of carbon dioxide has to be released. In the cellular level, mixing of oxygen takes place. Each and every cell mixes with the oxygen. So first breathing, intaking of oxygen enters into lungs and mixes with the blood and mixes with the tissue, mixes with the cells. It's called as cellular respiration. So it is called events in respiration. It is called as events in respiration. Now, what are the changes that takes place during inhalation and exhalation? Physical changes during inhalation. Physical changes during inhalation and exhalation. Physical changes during inhalation and exhalation. First we discuss about the physical changes during inhalation. So for this we can able to assume ourselves only. First, inhalation means we know that intaking of oxygen. So if you want to know the physical changes, simple experiment we can do by ourselves by inhaling. If we take the gas, automatically we can see the physical changes. Chest cavity raises, chest cavity raises. So chest cavity raises, abdomen lowers, abdomen lowers. So this is a small experiment we can do ourselves. What are the physical changes that takes place in inhalation and exhalation? Chest cavity raised, abdomen lowered. Next, during exhalation, opposite. Chest cavity comes to normal position. Chest cavity comes to normal. And as well as abdomen also comes to normal. And abdomen, ribs changes into dome shaped. Dome shaped. Inhalation, exhalation. When we inhale, chest cavity raises, abdomen lowers. When we exhale, chest cavity and abdomen comes to normal position and it turns into dome shape. So these are the physical changes during inhalation and exhalation. Physical changes during inhalation and exhalation. And the ribs plays a major role in the females. In the females, ribs plays a major role during respiration. And ribs consists of 12 pairs of bones. 12 pairs of bones are present on either side of the vertebral column. It is connected to the on either side of the vertebral column. 12 pairs are here. If you touch here, we can have the bones present. These are called ribs. And in the females, ribs plays a major role in the respiration. But in the males, ribs does not play any role. Simply it helps to restore its shape. That's all. Okay, these are physical changes during inhalation and exhalation. Now then we'll discuss about what are the percentage of gases present in the surroundings and composition of gases during inhalation and as well as the exhalation. Composition of air. Composition of air. Composition of air. So in the surroundings we have oxygen, carbon dioxide, main gases. Oxygen, carbon dioxide and nitrogen. Oxygen is 21% is present. Carbon dioxide 0.04% or 0.03%. Nitrogen 78% of nitrogen. And this is the composition of gases in the surroundings. And what is the percentage of gas during inhalation? Percentage of gases in inhalation and exhalation. Percentage of gases during inhalation and exhalation. When we inhale, how much percentage of oxygen we will take? 21% we will take. Carbon dioxide, same as it is, 0.04% we will take. Nitrogen 78% as it is we will take. We have taken total gases which are present in the nature. Now during exhalation, when we release that, how much air we are releasing? Oxygen we have taken 21%, but we release 16% only. The 5% of oxygen will be remained in the lungs only. 5% will remain in lungs for further use. For the further use, it will be useful. 0.04% of carbon dioxide we have taken, but we release 4.4%. 4.4% we release more. 100% more we are releasing, because before that only the gas carbon dioxide is diffused more in the blood compared to the surroundings. So we release 4.4% of carbon dioxide and 78% of nitrogen we inhale, and as it is 78% we exhale, because there is no use of nitrogen in our respiration. There is no role of nitrogen to our body, so we are exhaling 78%. It is the composition of gases. 21% we inhale, 0.04%, 78% as it is present in the air. And exhalation differs. Exhalation 16% we are exhaling the oxygen, remaining 5% will be remained in the lungs. 4.4% we are exhaling. Why we are releasing 4.4%, though we are taking 0.04 only? More than 100% we are releasing, because previously only the carbon dioxide is diffused in the blood, and the percentage of carbon dioxide present in the blood will be more compared to the surroundings. So we are releasing 4.4%. And as there is no role of nitrogen in our respiration, we will release the 78% of nitrogen. So these are the composition of gases that plays a major role during inhalation and exhalation. Okay, this is another topic. So I am discussing about respiration. So we can define this respiration. It is a biochemical reaction where the exchange of gases takes place. It is a biochemical process where the oxygen is taken and carbon dioxide is released. So here cellular respiration takes place in our body, where the exchange of gases takes place in the cells. It is called as cellular respiration. Now today we will discuss about the types of respirations. Types of respiration, we have two types of respiration called as aerobic and anaerobic. Aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. What is called aerobic? In the name itself we have aero, means air, in the presence of oxygen. In the presence of oxygen. in the presence of oxygen. If the respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen, it is called as aerobic respiration. So opposite to aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration in the absence of oxygen. In the absence of oxygen. Here, what are the products formed during aerobic respiration? What are the products formed during anaerobic respiration? Previously, we came to know that when the science is not sophisticated, when the science is not developed well, we used to think that aerobic respiration takes place only in animals as well as in the vertebrates. But anaerobic respiration also takes place in the vertebrates. Example, in the muscles, glucose changes into lactic acid. Now today we'll discuss about what are the products of aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So here C6H12O6, glucose in the presence of oxygen, it breaks down into 6CO2 plus 6H2O. It breaks down into carbon dioxide and water. The end products of aerobic respiration is carbon dioxide and water. Once again I will repeat. So the glucose, which have taken the energy, they will change the energy in the form of glucose and it is stored in the form of ATP. And now this glucose in the presence of oxygen changes into carbon dioxide and water. But in the anaerobic respiration, what are the end products of anaerobic respiration? If you observe in the anaerobic respiration, take an example of bacteria. In the bacteria, anaerobic respiration takes place, as well as in the yeast also anaerobic respiration takes place. It is also called as fermentation process. In the yeast, the anaerobic respiration is also called as fermentation process. What is called fermentation? It is a type of respiration only. It is a type of respiration done by the yeast cells in the absence of oxygen. It is called as fermentation, and where the alcohols are produced. So take an example of bacteria, and in the bacteria, lactic acid and carbon dioxide and energy is produced by the bacteria. In the anaerobic respiration, lactic acid, oxygen and energy is produced. So here, in the absence of oxygen, bacteria undergoes anaerobic respiration. Lactic acid, oxygen, energy is produced by the glucose. And here, from the glucose, lactic acid, oxygen, energy. Best example, if you observe, we can able to tell about the preparation of curd. How the curd is prepared in our houses by the anaerobic respiration only. And take an example of yeast. The respiration done by the yeast cells in the absence of oxygen, it is called as fermentation. This method, up to now, this method is used in the preparation of alcoholic beverages. Now also the same method is used to prepare the alcoholic beverages. How the yeast, in the absence of oxygen, glucose changes into alcohol and carbon dioxide and some energy is released. So this is the aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Here in the aerobic respiration is nothing but the respiration that takes place in the presence of oxygen. All vertebrates comes under the aerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration, all invertebrates and as well as some microscopic organisms like bacteria and yeast. Anaerobic respiration takes place. In the anaerobic respiration, lactic acid, oxygen and energy is produced by the bacteria, and the glucose is changed into alcohol. Is nothing but we can say as ethyl alcohol. Carbon dioxide energy is produced by the yeast in the process called as fermentation process. So this is the aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration, and the end products of aerobic respiration and anaerobic. Now if you come under the difference between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration, what are the differences between aerobic and anaerobic? So first one, definition only we can able to write what is called aerobic respiration, what is called anaerobic respiration. Respiration done in the presence of oxygen, in the presence of oxygen. Respiration done in the presence of oxygen, it is called as aerobic respiration. So opposite to that, aerobic respiration in the absence of oxygen means in the absence of oxygen. Here in the presence, here in the absence. Here cellular respiration takes place. Cellular respiration takes place in cytoplasm and mitochondria. Cellular respiration takes place in cytoplasm and mitochondria. Here, cellular respiration takes place only in cytoplasm only, mitochondria is absent. In these organisms, mitochondria is absent, so cellular respiration takes place only in the cytoplasm. And third point, if you come to the third point, aerobic respiration, what are the end products of aerobic respiration we discussed. So in the aerobic respiration, carbon dioxide and water and plus energy, and these are the end products of aerobic respiration. And here in the bacteria and in the yeast, you can write in the bacteria lactic acid plus carbon dioxide plus energy, yeast ethyl alcohol plus carbon dioxide plus energy. So least energy is released here. Now here, when you observe the difference between aerobic and anaerobic respiration, in the presence of oxygen, in the absence of oxygen, cellular respiration takes place in the aerobic respiration. Cellular respiration takes place in cytoplasm and mitochondria, and cellular respiration takes place only in the cytoplasm only. And carbon dioxide, water and energy are the end products. Lactic acid, carbon dioxide energy, ethyl alcohol, carbon dioxide energy. These are the differences between aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic and anaerobic. Now let us move to the another topic. So let's move to the cellular respiration. In higher chordates, cellular respiration in higher chordates. So best example, if you take an example of human beings. So already we discussed how the transport of gases takes place. So when we breathe, automatically it enters, the air enters into lungs. So means the air diffuses into lungs. When it enters into lungs, it mixes with the blood. When it mixes with the blood, it enters into tissues. After that, cellular respiration takes place. Cellular respiration takes place. So this is the pathway of air that enters into the, it is called as cellular respiration. When we breathe, entering transport of gases into lungs. After that, it enters into blood. In the blood, it diffuses and enters into tissues, and a cellular respiration takes place. In the human beings, cellular respiration takes place in cytoplasm and as well as mitochondria also. So mitochondria is called as powerhouses of the cell. It is called as powerhouses of the cell. What is called mitochondria and what is the importance of mitochondria? We'll discuss today. Now we'll discuss about the mitochondria, where the cellular respiration takes place in higher chordates. So mitochondria, it is called powerhouses of the cell. Powerhouses of the cell. Why it is called powerhouses of cell means mitochondria stores the energy in the form of ATP. Stores energy in the form of ATP. ATP. What is the full form of ATP? What is called ATP? The energy currency of the cell. The energy currency. ATP is called energy currency of the cell. So for each and every cell, this mitochondria provides energy in the form of ATP. The full form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Adenosine triphosphate. And what is the value of 1 ATP? 1 ATP is equal to 7,200 calories, or we can write as 7.2 kilocalories. So mitochondria, they stores energy in the form of ATP, and 1 ATP is equal to 7,200 calories, and also we can be written as 7.2 kilocalories. ATP is called as energy currency of the cell, and here the mitochondria stores the energy in the form of ATP. Now we discuss about the structure of mitochondria. This is the structure of mitochondria. So consists of outer membrane, and inner membrane. Double membrane, outer membrane and inner membrane. And the inner membrane consists of finger-like projections, finger-like projections like this. The finger-like projections will be, and this type of finger-like projections which are present in the inner membrane. These finger-like projections which are present in the inner membrane called as cristae, and the gap between these finger-like projections in the inner membrane, it is called as matrix. The gap present between the cristae in the inner membrane, it is called as matrix. Now where the energy is stored, how the energy is stored in the form of ATP. Now if you listen, around 80 to 100 mitochondria are present in each cell. In each cell around 80 to 100 mitochondria present. Each they will store the energy in the form of ATP and provides the energy to each and every cell. And here this mitochondria, normally it looks like it is spherical in shape or oval in shape. It may be spherical or oval in shape. Consists of two layers, outer membrane and inner membrane. The inner membrane consists of finger-like projections called as cristae, and the gap present between the cristae and the inner membrane, it is called as a matrix, where the Here the matrix only, the ATP is stored, energy is produced and stored in the form of ATP. So this is the structure of mitochondria. Now we come to the respiration. So respiration in different animals, if you take, already we discussed respiration in unicellular organisms you take. Unicellular. Here we can able to say that unicellular means single-celled organisms. As our body is made up of single-celled, total functions takes place through this cell only. And you take an example of amoeba, paramecium. And here the respiration takes place throughout their body surface, Exchange of gases takes place throughout their body surface. And the form called as diffusion. So in the form of diffusion, movement of molecules from higher concentration to the lower concentration. In the form of diffusion, respiration takes place in the unicellular organisms. So we discussed about amoeba and paramecium. They belongs to phylum Protozoa. And respiration takes place throughout their body surface in the form of diffusion. And next, when you come to the respiration in plants. So plants also respire. Not only they photosynthesize, they not only prepare their own food. During unfavorable conditions, during the absence of sunlight, respiration takes place in plants. So here exchange of gases in plants. Take an example in the roots. How the respiration takes place by the roots. And the leaves, in the stem, in the roots, root hairs and lenticels plays a major role for respiration. In the leaves, do you know about stomata? Exchange of gases takes place through stomata, and the cells which are present in the stomata called as guard cells. And in the stem, lenticels are present. And how this respiration takes place in this. So here when you observe in the plants during daytime, as the sunlight is present, they will take the carbon dioxide and releases the oxygen. Nothing but photosynthesis takes place. And during night time, when the plants does not have the sufficient sunlight, there the respiration takes place in plants. They releases the carbon dioxide and intake the oxygen. So when we go under a tree, we feel warm during night time because of respiration in plants only. And how the respiration takes place in leaves. Leaves is called as a food factory, and around 60 to 80 stomata are present in the leaf, which are distributed in different parts of the leaf, which are guarded by the cells called as guard cells. Opening and closing of stomata is guarded by the cells called as guard cells only. And releasing of oxygen and releasing of carbon dioxide in the two processes takes place through stomata only, as well as transportation also takes place through stomata. And lenticels in the stem also plays a major role, which are present above the surface of the bark. So below the surface of the bark, not above the surface, just behind the bark, these cells are present, which are useful for exchange of gases. So this is about the respiration in plants. Now we can able to prove these plants respire. Plants respire and which gas is releasing. Take an example, respiration in plants. We had to prove with experiments that during respiration plants releases carbon dioxide. Plants releases carbon dioxide during respiration. During respiration, plant releases carbon dioxide. So for that, we have to conduct an experiment, a simple experiment. What are the main aim of this experiment means to prove that plant releases carbon dioxide during respiration. What are the apparatus needed? What are the apparatus means materials needed to conduct this experiment. A thermoflask. We need a thermoflask. Germinated seeds. Rubber cork. Germinated seeds, rubber cork, test tube. So if you want, if not means no need, a small bottle. So thermoflask you have taken, germinated seeds, rubber cork you have taken. So in order to prove that carbon dioxide is released during respiration, the lime water is needed. So we have to insert a beaker with lime water, So these are the apparatus needed. Now how to conduct an experiment? So first, take a thermoflask. A thermoflask has taken, and this thermoflask, germinated seeds are taken, and insert these germinated seeds in the thermoflask and arrange a beaker with lime water. Arrange the beaker with lime water. Here we have to arrange the beaker inside the bottle only, or we can able to keep a long tube. If we cannot insert this, we cannot insert another time. No need to worry. Only take the germinated seed and insert a long tube, and this tube should be inserted into a test tube, and this test tube consists of lime water. This test tube consists of lime water and it is fixed with rubber cork, one whole rubber cork. Now this is the experiment we have to conduct. Plants releases carbon dioxide during respiration. First, you have to take a thermoflask and pour some of the germinated seeds in the thermoflask and insert a tube which is fixed into a test tube which consists of lime water through the rubber cork, single hole rubber cork. Now if you keep this apparatus for 24 hours, these germinated seeds starts respiring. When the germinated seed starts respiring, carbon dioxide is released by these seeds, and this carbon dioxide is carried out by this tube and allowed to enter into the lime water, and the least lime water turns into milky white. The lime water turns into milky white. Lime water turns into milky white. So this is an experiment to prove that plants releases carbon dioxide during respiration. So what are the apparatus needed? A thermoflask, germinated seeds, rubber cork, beaker with a lime water, or a test tube with lime water. With the tube also we can arrange if this cannot be inserted in the bottle. Now arrange this apparatus like this. Now we can able to do same experiment, and we can prove the other experiment also, that plants releases carbon dioxide as well as a heat also. Heat is released during respiration. So combustion, afterwards we'll discuss that one. When the respiration takes place automatically, for example, you can take your finger, take a long breath and release the air from the nose. The air which comes from the nose will be warm when we compare the air which is taken inside. So nothing but we are releasing the energy in the form of heat. Here also seeds also releases the energy in the form of heat during respiration. That we have to prove. For that one we have to take a thermometer and insert the thermometer into the, so we have to insert the thermometer. A thermometer is inserted now. A thermometer is inserted. And mark the level of the temperature in the thermometer before you insert into the jar. Now keep this apparatus, same apparatus. In one experiment only we can prove that carbon dioxide is released during respiration. When the carbon dioxide enters into the tube and enters into the lime water, turns into milky white. And as the seeds releases heat, the temperature rises in the thermometer, indicated that heat is released during respiration. So this is the best example to know how the heat and the carbon dioxide is released during respiration. In a single experiment only we can prove. So here first, so to know and to prove 2 experiments at a time, we can able to utilize this apparatus. Nothing but only a thermometer is needed, and with the thermoflask, germinated seeds, rubber cork and a tube, and as well as the test tube and lime water. And if you keep this apparatus for 3 to 4 hours, germination takes place, and these germinated seeds which are present inside, they will release carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide changes the lime water into milky, indicating that carbon dioxide is released during respiration. And heat is released. The temperature level rises in the thermometer, indicating that heat is released during respiration. So through this experiment we can prove that heat and carbon dioxide is released. And now we will discuss about respiration and combustion. What is called respiration and what is called combustion? Respiration versus combustion. The scientist Robinson stated that respiration is also a form of combustion. Respiration is also a form of combustion, where in the combustion more heat is released and charring takes place. Here the sugar is charred by more heating. Here less energy is released, and here more charring takes place. And here for this experiment, small experiment, during combustion also carbon dioxide is released. Combustion of sugar molecules also carbon dioxide is released. For example, when the combustion takes place in our muscles during the anaerobic respiration, automatically our muscles, as the glucose changes into lactic acid, will get the muscle pains. And here in the combustion also carbon dioxide is released. For this also we had to prove with an experiment, a small experiment. What we needed? Apparatus to prove that combustion. During combustion, carbon dioxide is released as well as sugar is charred. So take a test tube. A test tube you take. test tube we have taken, test tube, and add the sugar crystals, add sugar crystals, add sugar crystals. Okay, now arrange a tube from the test tube and allow to enter into the another test tube which consists of lime water, Now this tube is fitted with the rubber cork. And now heat this test tube with the Bunsen burner. With the Bunsen burner, or with the Bunsen burner is better to heat a test tube because it will be a hard one. So Bunsen burner we heat it. When we heat, the sugar chars means burns and changes into black in color, chars, and releases the carbon dioxide, and the moisture also released. It releases the water and it releases the carbon dioxide, and we can able to see the water molecules absorbed and moisture can be absorbed on the tube, and as well as the carbon dioxide is released. And this carbon dioxide is carried out by a tube present inside the test tube and enter into the lime water which is present in another test tube. And this lime water turns into milky white, indicating that during combustion carbon dioxide is released. So this is one experiment, combustion experiment. So another experiment, we will go through another experiment. Yeast experiment, very important experiment in 10th class. Yeast experiment. Anaerobic respiration experiment. With the yeast. So already we discussed, yeast respires in the absence of oxygen. And the type of respiration that takes place in the yeast, it is called as fermentation process. It is called fermentation. Once again I will repeat what is called fermentation. Fermentation is a type of respiration done by the yeast cells in the absence of oxygen. So we have to prove with an experiment. So for everything, science is nothing but quest for truth, searching for truth. Whenever we prove, then only others will obey. If we cannot prove, means that will be not obeyed by the other people. So now we have to prove that yeast releases carbon dioxide. Anaerobic respiration takes place in the yeast. For this, what are the apparatus needed? Yeast had to take sugar solution, paraffin wax, Janus green bee solution, Next, a test tube, two test tubes, splitted rubber cork, one hole rubber cork, we can say rubber cork, one hole rubber cork, splitted rubber cork we can take, lime water. So these are the apparatus needed to conduct the experiment with yeast. So we'll prove that alcohol is formed as well as the carbon dioxide is released, and we can prove that heat also released. So later we'll discuss that one. First, carbon dioxide is anaerobic respiration takes place in the yeast we have to prove. First take a test tube. A test tube we have taken. After taking the test tube, heat the sugar solution and cool to the room temperature. Why we have to heat the sugar solution and cool to the room temperature means the oxygen molecules which are present in the sugar solution has to be removed. So we have taken the solution. Before taking it to a test tube, we will heat and cool. We will heat and cool. Now we have to take yeast. 2 or 3 drops of yeast we have to drop it in the sugar solution. Now we added yeast in the sugar solution. Now when we add the yeast in the sugar solution, the yeast multiplies more in number in the sugar solution. And add paraffin wax. And before adding the paraffin wax, take Janus green bee solution and pour in the sugar solution. Why you had to pour the Janus green bee solution in the sugar solution means if the oxygen is dissolved in the sugar solution, Janus green bee solution will absorb the oxygen. So totally we have to do the experiment in the absence of oxygen only. So this is the main aim. Now, so we added the Janus green bee solution to absorb the dissolved oxygen present in the sugar solution. Now take the paraffin wax, solid wax, and fill it on the surface of this. Now in this test tube, what are the materials are present? Sugar solution is there, Janus green bee is there, yeast is present, and the wax also present. Now insert the 2 tubes, one tube like this, you insert. And this has to be inserted in another test tube which consists of lime water, and if you, so this is the arrangement of the experiment, and with the rubber cork we tighten the rubber cork. Understood now? Now if you keep this apparatus for 1 day, the yeast present in the sugar solution multiplies and anaerobic respiration takes place, nothing but fermentation takes place. While fermentation takes place in the sugar solution changes into alcohol. When the sugar solution is changing into alcohol, carbon dioxide is released, and this carbon dioxide will be taken away from the test tube into the another test tube with a long tube which is inserted into the lime water, and now this lime water turns into milky white, See, we can prove that with this experiment. We can prove that fermentation takes place in the sugar solution with the yeast. So first, once again I will repeat. This is an experiment to prove that yeast respires in the form of fermentation process. Fermentation, what is called fermentation? The term fermentation means nothing but the type of respiration done by the yeast cells in the absence of oxygen. And what are the end products of this fermentation? Alcohol, carbon dioxide, and heat, some heat only. Now we have to prove with the experiment. Take a test tube, take the sugar solution before allowing to the test tube, heat the sugar solution in order to dissolve the oxygen present in the dissolved, we had to remove the dissolved oxygen present in the glucose solution. So we removed and poured into the test tube. Once again, some oxygen may be present in the sugar solution, though we kept in a room temperature. So at that time also, in order to remove the dissolved oxygen in the sugar solution, we had to add Janus green bee solution. This Janus green tea solution absorbs the oxygen present in the sugar solution. And now add the paraffin wax. Now keep this experiment and close the test tube with a rubber cork, single hole rubber cork, with it inserted with a small tube which is inserted in the another test tube which consists of lime water, and keep this apparatus without disturbance for 24 hours. If you want to get if you want to get better result, 24 hours we need. Now the yeast present in the sugar solution starts respiration. That is nothing but fermentation. When the fermentation takes place, the sugar solution changes into alcohol, releasing of carbon dioxide. And this carbon dioxide moves from this tube and enters into the lime water, and the lime water turns into milky white in color, because the carbon dioxide is having the ability to change the lime water into milky white. And we can prove that carbon dioxide is released. And if you want to observe the heat also released during this experiment, we can insert a thermometer also. We can insert a thermometer also. Here, through this thermometer, we can able to know the temperature increases, the rise of the mercury level can be seen, indicating that heat is released as well as carbon dioxide also released. So this is an experiment called as experiment with the yeast to prove the fermentation process. Okay. So today we discussed aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration, and experiments. Carbon dioxide is released during respiration in plants, heat is released during respiration in plants, as well as another experiment we discussed about the fermentation process and the combustion experiment. 4 experiments we discussed. And here, what is the difference between photosynthesis and respiration? Very important. What is the differences between photosynthesis and respiration? Very important topic. And the last topic in this lesson, photosynthesis and respiration. Photosynthesis is a biochemical process. It is a biochemical process. It is a biochemical process. Respiration is also a biochemical process only. Biochemical process. And as well as physical process also. So it is a biochemical process, it is a biochemical as well as physical process. And here, in the photosynthesis, carbon dioxide and water is used. Carbon dioxide and water is used, and by using of this, glucose is produced with water and oxygen is released. And here, glucose in the presence of oxygen, carbon dioxide and water are the end products. So here, utilizing of carbon dioxide and water, glucose is produced. Here, utilizing of glucose and oxygen, carbon dioxide and water is released. And next, it takes place in sunlight only. Throughout the day, during sun, during night, throughout the day it takes. Here only in sunlight only photosynthesis takes place. Photosynthesis is an anabolic process. Anabolic process means anabolism. What is called anabolism means require providing of energy. So anabolic process. What is called anabolic process means the process where how the energy is stored, produced and stored. It is called as anabolic process. It is a catabolic process. What is a catabolic process? Means releasing of energy, losing of energy. It is energy loss process. It is energy gain process. And here, in the photosynthesis takes place in the leaf, in the chlorophyll. Here takes place in the cellular respiration. Cellular respiration takes place here in cytoplasm, and here in cytoplasm as well as the mitochondria and mitochondria. So these are the difference between photosynthesis and respiration. So it is a biochemical process, it is a biochemical as well as physical process. Carbon dioxide and utilizing of carbon dioxide and water, glucose is the end product. By utilizing of glucose and oxygen, carbon dioxide and water is released. Here energy gaining process, it is energy losing process. It occurs only in sunlight only. It occurs throughout the day. It occurs only, takes place only in green plants. It takes place in all the organisms. It takes place in all the organisms, in vertebrates as well as the invertebrates. It is anabolic process. It is a catabolic process. It takes place in chlorophyll in the leaf. And it takes place in cytoplasm and in the mitochondria. And this useful only in plants. This is useful in all other organisms. So these are the difference between photosynthesis and respiration. And here in the photosynthesis, combustion does not take place. Here less combustion will be, heat is released, more heat is released. So this is about the photosynthesis and respiration. So already we discussed the topics in respiration. What is called respiration? It is a biochemical process. It is a biochemical as well as a physical process where the exchange of gases takes place in the cellular level. And here oxygen is taken and carbon dioxide is released in two steps called as inspiration and expiration. Inspiration, intaking of oxygen. Expiration, releasing of carbon dioxide. And here when you observe in the higher organisms like us, lungs plays a major role. Lungs are the respiratory organs. The type of respiration that takes place through lungs is called as pulmonary respiration. If you take an example of aquatic organisms, gills plays a major role for respiration. The type of respiration that takes place through gills called as bronchial. With the help of skin, if they take place, it is called as cutaneous respiration. Example, earthworm, it is ghost. And if the respiration takes place through trachea and insects, it is called as tracheal respiration. In the respiration in plants, respiration takes place in plants in the leaf with the help of the god cells, in the stem with the help of the lenticels, with the help of the aerial, means nothing but root hairs as well as the lenticels in the root. So exchange of gases, nothing but respiration is nothing but exchange of gases. Okay. Now, what are the chemical equations of photosynthesis and chemical equation? At last we will conclude. Equation for photosynthesis. Equations. Photosynthesis. 6CO2 plus 12H2O gives rise to C6H12O6 plus 6H2O and 6O2. O2 is a gas. So these are called as reactants, reactant 1 and reactant 2. And in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll, these are called as intermediates. These two are sunlight and chlorophyll are called as intermediates, carbon dioxide and water called as reactants, and these are products. Glucose, water and oxygen are the end products. This is the photosynthesis equation. 6CO2 plus 12H2O gives rise to C6H12O6 plus 6H2O plus 6O2. Then respiration. Glucose C6H12O6 in the presence of oxygen, 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus some energy is released. This is the equation for the respiration. So 6 during respiration, by utilizing of oxygen, glucose changes into carbon dioxide and water and energy. In these two types of respirations, we already discussed aerobic respiration. This is called aerobic respiration. It is the equation for aerobic. Anaerobic respiration. So glucose in the presence of carbon dioxide, C6H12O6 with the carbon dioxide changes into, in the bacteria lactic acid formed, lactic acid plus lactic acid is formed, and in the yeast alcohols are formed. Alcohols are formed in the absence of oxygen. Okay, alcohols and carbon dioxide, lactic acid, and so we can write this one: lactic acid and carbon dioxide and alcohols and carbon dioxide. So this is the equations for photosynthesis and respiration. So in the respiration, two types of aerobic and aerobic. Glucose is changed into lactic acid and carbon dioxide by the bacteria, alcohols and carbon dioxide by the yeast. And in the aerobic respiration, glucose in the presence of oxygen changes into carbon dioxide, water and energy.